Hello and welcome to today's crypto analysis. And today we'll be looking at Bitcoin. It's probably the most famous cryptocurrency and also the first one. So we'll be taking an in-depth look. Now, what do? We look at the fundamentals of a particular cryptocurrency, in this case, obviously Bitcoin. We don't look at day strategies. We don't look at day trading. What has it done today? What's fresh in the news? We are really looking at the fundamentals of a cryptocurrency and what the long-term prospects are. So without further ado, let's begin. So let's have a look at Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency which is probably the biggest cryptocurrency. It's obviously at this form, it's a new digital asset, but it was the first and still the biggest example of what a cryptocurrency is. Currently, it's been on an absolute tear, and its market cap is 287 billion. The interesting thing is the circulating supply is only slightly over 16 million bitcoins, and there's a max supply of 21 million bitcoins, which obviously drives up the price because it's a scarce asset. Now, Bitcoin was created in 2009 by Satoshi Nakamoto. This is the name used by an unknown person or persons. I think it's widely believed that it's multiple people who designed Bitcoin, and they created the original reference implementation for Bitcoin. The person or persons with the name Satoshi Nakamoto are thought to hold up to 1 million bitcoins, or roughly 4.75% of the total supply of 21 million bitcoins. So, what are some of the strengths of Bitcoin? Let's have a look at that. Well, without a doubt, it is the absolute market leader. It is the first one, but everyone knows Bitcoin. If you talk cryptocurrencies, people will know what Bitcoin is, and then with its recent popularity, you can probably walk up to any taxi driver or hairdresser, somebody not in either tech or financial services, and they will recognise Bitcoin. They might not recognise if you mention Ripple, XRP, Stellar, Lumens, or any other cryptocurrency, but I'll bet you that over 95% will know what Bitcoins are. It's limited to 21 million. This is the biggest advantage of Bitcoin. It's decentralized, which is another major advantage. So what this means is it's out of control of central banks or central governments or regulators at this point in time. So combined with the sort of scarcity element, where this is sort of very attractive, is if you imagine you're in an unstable country and your currency is under deflationary pressure, i.e., let's say you live in Zimbabwe or you live in Venezuela, or you live in North Korea, that there probably are sort of worries about the currency, and some of the currencies are just devaluing day by day. Here you have a asset class which is not controlled by a government, so they can't set what you do. So you can imagine that if you get to a situation where your currency deflates, that you would sort of invest in Bitcoin, and that you at least keep your value of what you've got at that stage, i.e. your 100 Venezuelan bolivars. The other major advantage is it's completely anonymous, and finally its growth has been absolutely through the roof. Let's have a look if we can have a look at that. So let's have a look. It's always good to have a look at a chart. Here you go. We went there from back in the day. It was probably around 30 cents. It's gone all the way up to today's price is around 17,000, and there's a lot of questions where that will settle. So there's a lot of advantages to Bitcoin and a lot of strengths. Now, some of it, its weakness, the three sort of big ones. Bitcoin has massive scalability issues. As it grows and as it becomes much more popular, it starts to creak. And I still think we're very much at the start. So this is this is sort of first mover disadvantage, if you like. You build something on outdated technology, once it's built, it's the latest technology. But then once technology moves on, all of a sudden, the ones that been to market first will probably have an older technology. And the sort of analogy here is if you look at other cryptocurrencies, they will probably be much better adapted to some of the scalability issues because they can learn the lessons from Bitcoin. It's quite cumbersome and slow in comparison to some new alternative coins or cryptocurrencies. Again, the proof of concept uses a lot of electricity and a lot of work. So yeah, that causes a few problems. And then finally, it's highly volatile. It can go up and down massively. If you check your Bitcoin value at the start of the day and at the end of the day, you could have a very different picture. And this is on a day-to-day basis. 15 to 20% swings in the normal day are not unheard of. But that said, its growth has been absolutely insane. So it's a new asset class, and with that, it will be always be highly volatile. Now, some fundamental questions really. What is driving the growth of Bitcoin? Again, if we look at the chart that we were just looking at, we can see that it's been going absolutely crazy. If we look at even a year to date, this is the 1 year chart. Now, initially, some experts say that the natural rate of growth, think that that the natural rate of growth for Bitcoin will mean that it will become $500,000, which is per Bitcoin, and they say it will become a worldwide currency. I'm not quite sure on the total value. I think it still has quite a long way to go. I doubt with the scalability issue that it will become a worldwide currency, and then I'll get onto that later. I think one of the things that's driving its growth is it's the first one to market, but secondly, every sort of cryptocurrency exchange sells cryptocurrency coins, but they all stock Bitcoin. And if you want to invest in other cryptocurrencies, it's easiest to buy Bitcoin with your conventional currency. So if you have a credit card and you want to buy Bitcoins, that's very easy. You just go on an exchange and you buy it. If you want to buy, again, let's say Ripple XRP, Stellar Lumens, you would have to first probably buy Bitcoins and then exchange those Bitcoins for those Stellar Lumens. So that's one reason for the growth. Then the other thing is obviously where we are now. The Chicago Board of Options Exchange have just started their futures trading, and the CME will do the same thing. But let's not forget there are genuine arguments that this is, one of the biggest bubbles we have seen ever, really. So let's not sort of dismiss that. So with that, it's always interesting to sort of see what do experts think of this, and I think it's very good to look at people you often you might not agree with, because you have to look for disconfirming evidence. So in particular, what do some of the experts say? Jamie Dimon, who is the chief exec of, let's find this out. He was the chief exec of JP Morgan, so a distinguished professional. He calls Bitcoin a fraud, which is obviously his opinion. You might not agree with that, but again, you can't dismiss somebody with his stature. The same that the person I admire very much is Warren Buffett, obviously a very distinguished investor who's, I believe, beaten the market by 20% a year for over 50 years, and it might even be more. And he's sort of very much against Bitcoin. He says of our 49 billion, we haven't moved any to Bitcoin. And again, you can't just dismiss these guys. They've been here a long time, and they are obviously very good at what they do. So I think it's very good to sort of see what they think. On the other hand, You've got some of the other experts. Bill Gates famously invested in, I think it's Stellar Lumens. Richard Branson believes in the usability of Bitcoin. And then one that I've sort of followed very closely is John McAfee. Now he has got a stake interest in this because he's got a Bitcoin mining company. So you've got to bear that in mind once you look at their advice. But let's have a look what John McAfee has to say on Bitcoin.
People are calling Bitcoin a bubble that's bursting. Now, keep in mind that 2 months ago, Bitcoin was at $2,900, and people were saying it's never going to hit 3. Well, it hit 4 and it hit 5. If you look at the long-term trend of Bitcoin, it has been consistently up. I mean, who cares that it dropped $1,000 from $5,000 after it went from the $2,900 to $5,000 in 2 months? It's still ahead from what it was 2 months ago. My company is one of the largest miners in America, and one of the nice things about mining is it doesn't matter what the price of Bitcoin is. We still make money. As the price goes down, there are fewer competitors for mining, and the difficulty rate decreases, and we simply mine more coins. So I know as well as anybody what the price of Bitcoin is, and it is consistently increasing.
I understand.
You're going, oh, wow, the bubbles burst. Go ahead.
Jane.
So that's John McAfee on Bitcoin. He thinks it's going to go to 500k by 2020. He's actually revised that to 1 million with the sort of recent growth that we've had over the last few weeks. So again, there are a lot of experts that are for and against. What are some threats and opportunities? So I think there are some obvious threats. One is regulation. At the moment, it's completely decentralized. It's away from central governments and central banks. You can imagine that governments don't like that and would like to start to regulate Bitcoin. The other thing is cryptocurrency 2.0. A lot of cryptocurrencies will learn the lessons from Bitcoin, specifically around scalability, etc. And they will come out with a better cryptocurrency. Now, there's about 1,000 cryptocurrencies out there already, probably more, and a lot of them are better. Again, I think a lot of that will be offset by the sort of first mover advantage and the fame that Bitcoin has. But again, if we do run into massive scalability issues, then a second type of currency might take over. Then there's the bubble argument. We might get Bitcoin mania, and at one point it pops and people don't believe in Bitcoin as an asset class. And finally, there's the legislators and governments simply banning it. So not trying to regulate it, but just completely say, we're banning Bitcoin. I think those are some serious threats, and all of that would seriously devalue Bitcoin. The opportunities then are, the opportunities surrounding the blockchain technology are already being investigated. I think for me the borderless payment system is very attractive. There's some issues at the moment, but again, the idea of having something which is completely decentralized is very attractive. And finally, Bitcoin as a store of value is interesting. And again, I'll get onto that with the next slide. So, with the massive scalability, my thoughts on Bitcoin are as follows. With the massive scalability issues, I don't think Bitcoin will become a currency. I think the ledger will be too cumbersome, but I think it will become a store of value, a digital gold. If you compare it to gold in the olden days, if you had one way to protect your assets is to invest in gold. It's stable and it holds long-term value. And again, if something goes wrong in the country that you are, then gold is an easy way to have a store of value. Again, if you have currency that devalues day by day, then gold is one way of holding that. But it's got some problems. It's tricky to get hold of. It's hard to keep. It's hard to transport. If you have £1 million in gold, it's very tricky to sort of move it around. So what do you do with it? How do you transport that? If you compare that to Bitcoin, you could put that digitally on an exchange. You could travel all over the world, and you could just withdraw it wherever you are or exchange it for the fiat currency that you're at. The other thing that I think is, as Bitcoin grows, it becomes a bit of a snowball. We're now seeing the first sort of moves by Wall Street and financial institutions to start moving into this. As this grows, I think this will be the first worldwide sort of asset class that's launched and will actually grow from there, and I think it will increase in take up and thus push up the value more. So I probably do agree with some of the outlandish figures that people are saying that Bitcoin will be above 100k at some stage. So yes, I think Bitcoin is a very interesting one, definitely worth in investing in, but only with money you can afford to lose. And finally, I don't think it will become a digital currency. I think it will be a digital store of value. And they're my thoughts.